Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else. So welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin. Today, let's talk about having champagne taste on a beer budget. More importantly, we're going to talk about why we want more than we can afford. And let's talk about the story that started it all. I had some work done at my house recently, and I got several quotes, as you do. One of the contractors quoted me saying that, let's just say $1,000 a day. Another contractor quoted $800 a day, but there was one contractor who quoted me $500 a day. Now that is half the quote of the first contractor, right? Now, when you're quoted $1,000, you expect really, really good work and attention to detail. But when I hired the $500 a day person, expecting the same level of quality as the $1,000 a day person, oh boy, was I frustrated. The work wasn't what I expected. I was disappointed. I was irate. I was angry. And then I realized something really uncomfortable. I was being a complete hypocrite. Your girl here was being a hypocrite. Because there's a mirror moment, right? Because I do the same thing to my clients. When people hire me for way less than my normal rate, I get a little bit resentful, or they want to hire me for less than my rate. I get resentful. And I've learned since to set a daily rate that I'm okay with and a number that I won't feel bitter at the end. But when a client wants to pay me a third of what I should charge, that's where the boundaries are set. And I have to say, no, thank you. But I was doing the same thing, the exact same thing that I hate when clients do to me. I was doing it to someone else, expecting top quality work on a really tight budget. Now, you know me, I love some science. I love to think about why we do the things we do. And so this is where I had to dig a little bit deeper into the psychology of this. So that said, let's talk about why we all want expensive quality on really cheap budgets. And before we do this, the first thing that you have to understand is what's called the first impression effect. The first impression effect is there's a thinking pattern, let's say, that's called the first impression effect. And that pattern makes us rely much too heavily on the first piece of information we hear when we are making decisions. Now, once we get that first number in our heads, let's say the $1,000, we base everything on that first number, but we don't adjust enough. We don't adjust the quality mindset, right? So in my first case, that first $1,000 quote became my starting point. And I set my expectations for what professional work would be based on that $1,000 point. And when I saw the $500 option, instead of lowering my quality expectations, I kept expecting $1,000 level of work. So research shows us that expensive in our mind equals better quality, right? So we use price kind of like as a mental shortcut to judge how good something is. But there's a little bit of a problem with that. Once we actually experience a product or a service, what we actually get, the thing that we get matters more than what we paid for. Are you with me on this? So the educated but broke pattern is what we're going to talk about. The research has found that something that we all know. We know that champagne tastes beer budget, and consumers who have really great education, they have refined taste, but they don't have much money. They tend to have these champagne taste things. And these people, they try smart strategies to get high-end goods they technically can't afford. Does this sound familiar? The whole Birkin bag thing that we get from Walmart, right? We've all been there. And we can't forget that we all love ourselves a really good deal. But let's get to the fact that we are so messy as humans, right? When we have expensive tastes on a tight budget, it's not because our brains are playing tricks on us, but because life is expensive and we're trying to make magic happen. We're trying to feel special. We're trying to draw a little joy from our lives, however we can with the little money that we can scrape together. But maybe it's your wedding photographer and you've been saying for several years that you're going to cut out the coffee, your Starbucks habit, and date nights because you know that the photos that will hang on your wall for decades matter really a lot. And so you're willing to make sacrifices for it. Or maybe it's that contractor who's fixing your kitchen because, well, you know, your mother-in-law's visiting and you can't have her seeing water damage anymore. And you know, she's going to have opinions. We want quality, not because we're spoiled, but because we're human beings and we think that we deserve nice things. And even when our bank account is giving us the silent treatment, we're all walking around with really expensive hearts in a budget world, hoping that someone will see our limits and still deliver magic. And honestly, hope isn't unreasonable. Really, it's beautiful. And, you know, we're all being stubbornly human. The truth is that the brutal truth really is that your clients aren't necessarily being unreasonable. They're being human. We know. But when someone has experienced top quality service before, that becomes their starting point. And some of them are trying to take advantage of you. Let's not lie. But others, they literally are using like mental shortcuts. And sometimes they don't even understand the work that it takes to put into the service or the product that you have. At this point, we all know what we have to do, right? We have to manage expectations. So number one, you're going to set clear quality starting points very early. Don't let price be the only thing that they focus on. You want to be very clear about what they get at different price points, right? We all hear that, you know, if you are, say, a wedding photographer, and I was a wedding photographer, so I did this. So if you are offering price points, offer 3 price points, right? At point X, which is going to be usually your highest price point, you get X, Y, and Z, right? And if you're looking for A, B, and C, that's typically a different investment level. So right then and there, you're able to tell them, this is what I offer. You're looking for this. You know, they have to change their mindset. You have to educate themselves about what investing in the product, in the service that you deliver, what that investment level will be. The second thing we want to think about when we are managing our clients' expectation is to use the comparison method. So restaurants do this all the time. They put a few expensive meals on their menu to make other options seem more reasonably priced. And let me tell you, you can do the same as well. Show your premium options first to set expectations and then show other options later. The third thing you want to do to manage expectations is to address their starting point directly. You could say something like, I know you might have seen other quotes that were higher or lower. Here's what makes the product or the service that I'm offering different. Right? So you're managing their expectations by addressing that starting point. Now, the fourth way that you can manage expectations is by creating comparison charts. Make it visual. People tend to be visual and they want to see what things are going to look like. So show them exactly what they get at each price level. And this really helps them to reset their expectations. So there you have it. You have several different tools that you can use to help manage expectations. To recap, we said set clear quality starting points very early. You want to also use comparison methods and you want to address their starting point directly. And then lastly, you want to create a comparison chart so that they can understand what they get at each price level. All right. So now moving on, let's talk about how to get better results on any budgets. Let's say you're the client, right? And so what you want to do is you want to notice your starting point. You want to also acknowledge that you and everybody else, you rely heavily on the first piece of information that you get. And that first piece of information affects us all. Numbers don't mean anything until they become your reference point. So as a client now, right? So you're not a service provider, you're a client. What you want to do is you want to research realistic expectations. So before you go around shopping, research what's realistic at your budget. Don't let the first quote, high or low, set unrealistic expectations. The second thing you want to do is you want to share your budget upfront with whoever it is that you're chatting with, right? So instead of hoping for expensive quality on a really, really tight budget, you can start out by saying, hey, just to be upfront here, my budget is X. What can I realistically expect at that level? Next, the third thing is know that you can value different things. Maybe you can't get $1,000 precision, but maybe you can get reliability, you could get honesty, or you could get speed. And you have to know what matters the most to you. Now, the fourth thing that you will do as a client to kind of set your expectations, don't assume that price equals quality. Actually, research shows that people are becoming really aware that the expensive things don't always mean better quality, right? Sometimes you'll find incredible quality at lower price points. Just don't expect it automatically. Do your research. Having said all of that, the real challenge is setting boundaries when money is tight, either for you or for your client or customer. And here's what most advice around this topic misses. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, saying something like, just set boundaries, is advice for people who don't really need money. And we all know this. As service providers, we try to maintain professional standards while making sure that we can all pay our bills. But how do you stay proud of your work when you desperately need money? We've all been this. We've all been there. I've been there. I have taken jobs that were well below my daily rate, well below the cost of running business because, let's be honest, I needed the money. And we know that sometimes we'll be forced to compromise. But one thing to think about is what happens when you have to take lower paying work than you're used to. And so what I'm going to do at this point is share a few plans I use when I have to make that difficult choice. The first thing I do is I document everything. When I'm taking lower paying work, I want to be clear about what I'm getting, taking that work versus what full rate the client gets. I create a portfolio to show this difference. I use budget clients as example to show the range of the work that I create at that lower budget, right? Versus my higher rates. I create clear service levels with visual examples because, to be honest, people understand quality differences when they can see things side by side. So I can say, let's say my day rate is, I'll just pick a number. My day rate is $1,000 a day, but you can only pay me $500 a day. This is the quality of work you'll get at $500 a day. And this is the quality of work that $1,000 a day looks like. And as a photographer, I can tell you what that looks like because people who hire me at a lower rate, and I'm happy to do it. However, you're not getting like that star Martine. You're getting the basic Martine, and the basic Martine is just me and one assistant usually versus like me and a team of like 20 people. The work that you're going to get or the end value or the end product you're going to get is just going to be very different because it's just going to be me and an assistant versus like me and a gaffer, a producer, a wardrobe stylist, a prop stylist, an assistant, like hair and makeup artist, And there's just a whole lot of people that it takes to deliver that like top shelf experience as a photographer versus like if you have me and an assistant. And I'm telling you, me and my assistant, we can knock it out, but there's a clear difference, right? One thing I want to say though, is I hardly ever put budget client work in my main portfolio. If you go on my website, you won't see it. And the reason why I do that is because I do not want to attract budget clients at all. It could be that I'm asked to do work that I normally wouldn't do or that you normally wouldn't do. For example, if you're a painter who paints landscapes and someone might say, hey, I know you paint landscapes, but you're a painter. Can you paint my dog? But it doesn't mean that you're going to put dogs in your portfolio all of a sudden, right? Because that's not what you focus on. Just be sure that whatever is on that portfolio, that you are putting work that you want to be hired for. If you are going to take budget clients, what you need to do is decide in advance what your absolute minimum rate is and what you'll deliver at that rate. You really need to think about this because I call this the not resentment rate. My good friend Diana King, who's a photographer, shared this tip and it's been a lifesaver because I call it my non-resentment rate. And below this number, you literally cannot take the job because the emotional costs will damage your other work. The resentment is real and it is toxic to your creativity. Before I had this non-resentment rate, I would take jobs and I would hate it. I would hate every minute of it because I would I'm giving you all of this and you're paying me what? But it had nothing to do with the client. It had everything to do with me because I had not set any boundaries. And now I have a non-resentment rate and I have a resentment rate. The resentment rate is X. And I know that if I take a job at that X point, I'm going to be resentful and I'm not going to take that rate. But do with that as you will, because we all have we're coming from different backgrounds and we all have different needs. And sometimes you just have to take a job at that resentment rate, but you just have to adjust your expectations for that. However, if you're starting out and you're thinking, Martine, what you talking about? I need the money. I can't get expensive clients yet. Well, I got you. Here's what you'll do. Group your discounted work together. Do several budget projects in a row. And then what you want to do is gradually build yourself higher and higher and higher towards your paying clients, right? And this will prevent constant mental switching between different quality expectations. What you want to do is you want to practice pairing tasks. That is, combine lower paid work with something that you enjoy, like trying and building new skills, right? For example, I did weddings for a number of years because I knew that I was practicing different skills with each wedding that I did, right? So while I wasn't getting paid the money that I liked, but I took those jobs on because I knew I was learning something different. With that said, what are some of the conversations that you could potentially have with your clients? So for my service providers, you could say, this is what professional fill in the blank photography, consulting, design work costs. And here is why. And so you tell and you educate that client that this price point, this is exactly what you can expect. I have a portfolio that shows the difference between different investment levels. Would you like to see examples? And sometimes people just want your basic rate, and that's all right. And honestly, when people come to me and they want me at like that higher level rate, and I'm unable to do it at that rate because it meets my resentment rate, what I do is I just say, well, I know that there are some photographers who are starting out, and I think that this work would be right up their alley. Here are their names. Please feel free to reach out. And then I'll reach out to those photographers as well and those creatives as well. And I'll say, hey, this person reached out to chat with me. I'm not available during this date. I'm unable to take this work. See if you would consider that, right? And sometimes you don't have to be all like mean to your potential client, right? You could just say, I'm sorry, I'm unable to take this job at this moment, but here are some other people that you might be considered for this assignment or for this job.
One of the things that we talk a lot as creatives is breaking the race to the bottom. And one great way to do this is to connect with others in your field. You want to group action and you want to share what your rates are and information. And that way we are all kind of like working from the same level, because when we all undervalue our work, we are making it worse for others who are in creative fields, right? We really are. Okay. So we're getting to the end here. Let's do a quick recap. We know that life is complicated. Life is complicated. And the thing that expensive tastes on a beer budget is all about, it's like a thinking pattern and a symptom of how our economy systematically undervalues creative work and service work while promising that we can move up through economic levels, through class levels in terms of buying things, right? And when you're constantly fighting for a fair pay, you really have to negotiate your values, especially since you're fighting against a system that expects professional result at amateur prices. So just remember, set boundaries that protects your business long-term, document quality differences to educate clients visually, use advanced planning to decide on pricing. Now, I want to give a note to the wise here. If you want to deliver high-end products, then you need to deliver high-end service. When people are paying you more money, they need you to show up your very best. You need to give them best service. When you understand both the psychology behind unrealistic expectations and you understand the economic forces that create them, you can handle those forces strategically instead of just surviving them. And that's all I have for you. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of This Is How We Create. I loved having you here. Hi there. I have a quick favor to ask you before you go. If you're loving the show, would you mind taking a quick second to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite go-to podcast app? Here's the thing. Those reviews are like magic fairy dust. They help other creatives of color discover our show and tap into their own artistic superpowers. While you're at it, why not subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Creative Matters? Creative Matters is like a weekly dose of inspiration delivered straight to your inbox. You can find the link to subscribe in the show notes. All right, that's all that I have for you today. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.